Hey everyone, welcome back to Brown Coat Nerd. Today we're going to be doing a comparison between the Makarov, this particular one is Bulgarian, and the CZ VZ82. Both these guns are chambered in 9x18 Makarov, however, this is not a Makarov design. Simply because a gun takes 9x18 Makarov, a lot of times people will just call it a Makarov, like the Polish Makarov or the Hungarian Makarov or the Czechoslovakian Makarov. However, they did not copy the design from Russia like a bunch of other countries did, such as Bulgaria did. So I decided, might as well do a side-by-side comparison of the two. Real quick, I do want to remind everyone to please go check out my Rumble as well as my Instagram, and now let's dive into this comparison. So the original Makarov design began production in the early 50s, whereas the 82 came along much later, and production did not begin until the early 80s. So pretty big discrepancy there. The magazines are quite different on these. As you can see, the Bulgarian Makarov uses a very large windowed single stack mag that holds 8 rounds. Sorry for hitting the tripod there. Whereas the 82 is a double stack mag, uses a closed magazine that holds a total of 12 rounds, and we do have a few witness holes back here to see how many rounds you have. The barrel length on both of these is right about 3.8 inches, so the length is pretty much the same. Also, I forgot to show you all, we are working with empty guns. I always safety check this before filming. The barrel thickness on the Makarov is 12.9 millimeters. I do believe it's chrome lined. I am not positive if it's cold hammer forged. I would assume as though it is a cold hammer forged barrel. The CZ82, the barrel thickness comes in a little less at 12.7 millimeters. It's also worth pointing out that I did simply use the cheapest digital calipers I could find on Amazon. So I'm assuming they're accurate enough, but just so you all know. So just a little bit thinner than the Makarov barrel. These ones I do know are chrome lined and are cold hammer forged. It's also worth pointing out that another big difference on these two is the rifling. The Makarov has traditional rifling, whereas the 82 has polygonal, I always mess that up and get too confused. It's got Glock style rifling. This was actually the first mass-produced handgun that had that rifling, so that's kind of neat. And the main reason Czechoslovakia did it, while this gun was chambered for 9x18 Makarov, their loading of it was different than what the Russians and most other Warsaw countries were using. I believe it was a heavier bullet with a higher powder charge behind it. And I don't know if it was for reasons of them worrying about wearing out the barrel or what, but they decided to go with the polygonal rifling. This obviously can, however, just shoot your standard 9x18 Makarov round. And that's one thing I was really curious about shooting these side by side, which I did recently. So real quick on that, I was expecting the 82 here to be, I guess, more controllable, better feeling in the hand than the Makarov, simply because the Makarov does have a slimmer grip since it's a single stack. And the 82's got a little bit more of a thicker grip since it's a double stack. Now, while the 9x18 Makarov is not a potent round in any means, and they're both direct blowback, that direct blowback action does kind of make it a little snappy. So I was kind of thinking this wider grip would eat up more of that recoil and it'd feel a lot nicer in my hands. Not that they're uncomfortable, but I was very surprised to find that shooting them side by side, there was really no felt recoil difference whatsoever between these two. So that's one thing I was really expecting, but found wasn't really there at all. Another thing, I was curious about how accurate this would be compared to the Makarov, since I don't have any of the Czech heavier loadings that this barrel was designed for. If that would really affect the accuracy in one way or another, having that polygonal rifling compared to the traditional rifling. Now, I've had this Makarov for several years, and I've shot it quite a bit. I haven't shot it a whole heck of a lot. And this 82 I did fairly recently get, and I've only taken this particular one out to shoot a few times. However, I do have a CZ83, which is the exact same gun, but chambered in 380, and I've had that, I think, longer than I've had the Makarov, and I've shot that a whole lot. So I kind of have a good feel of at least the 380 chambering of this gun. So taking them out shooting, to begin with, I'll be honest, with the CZ82, I wasn't the best. I had a fairly large grouping, especially compared to the Makarov. However, as the day went on, my grouping of the Makarov pretty much stayed the same, and the grouping with the CZ82 did appear to tighten up quite a bit, to the point where it was pretty much very, very comparable to what I was getting with the Makarov. I will say I was having just a few flyers per round, it seemed like. I'm sure it was mostly me. But I didn't seem to really get those with the Makarov. Now, when I did load a mag, I would use the decocker function on this, so my first shot would be in double action. When I loaded the mag with the CZ82, did not use the decocker function on this because it doesn't have it, but I would let the hammer down, so my first shot on each mag would also be double action. I kind of wanted to get that heavier trigger pull thrown in there as well. And those flyers weren't necessarily coming from the double action triggers. Obviously, the double action pull, wasn't as tight of a group as the single action. Shots were landing on target. Like I said, I was getting just a few more, it seemed like, with the 82. Maybe it was me, but other than that, the grouping of these was very, very close to one another, to the point I would say that they are both, as far as accuracy, there's no clear winner on at least these two particular models. And the ammo I was using was some of this old Academy Monarch, which I think actually came out of Russia back when we could get that ammo. In the box I have here is the steel case, which I wasn't actually shooting the steel case, it was their brass case version. This stuff is 94 grain. I just realized this is hollow point, so I'm not sure if the grain weight was the same. So, sorry guys, I can't for sure tell you what ammo weight I was using. I shot one box of that. Also shot a box of the I think it's coming out of Poland now, Mesco ammunition. And I shot a box of that. Once again, I don't have a box handy to tell you what the grain weight was. My apologies. But like I said, they both kind of came out head-to-head on accuracy. Some of the other dimensions, slide thickness on the Makarov here came out to 24.9 millimeters. Slide thickness on the CZ came out to 24 millimeters. The grip thickness on the Makarov obviously is going to be thinner since it is a single stack magazine. This came out to 27 millimeters, and it is pretty even throughout the entire grip. Comes up just a little bit towards the top here. The grip thickness on the 82 does vary quite a bit, as you can see here. Generally, roughly this grip was about 33 millimeters thick. I think I already mentioned the Makarov began production in the early 50s, whereas the 82 began production in the early 80s. So quite a bit of a year gap there. Makarov is 8+1 rounds. The CZ is 12+1 rounds. Now, some of the features of these guns, the Makarov has what you would expect of some old Cold War surplus pistols, in that they're just pretty darn basic. Whereas the CZ, being newer for a Cold War, especially combat pistol, has some pretty darn decent sights. Your picture is pretty much a 3-dot window that you got here. However, it is worth pointing out that front one is not actually a dot, it's just a painted front ramp. So once again, I was kind of surprised I wasn't more accurate with the CZ82 having the better sights. I did notice I felt like I was getting target acquisition quicker with these sights, whereas the Makarov was kind of making me, or forcing me, to concentrate a little bit more So that helped with the accuracy on that, but this one was just a little bit quicker. But like I said before, the accuracy was pretty much the same on both of these. The magazine release on these is quite a bit different as well. On the Makarov, you have what you'd expect. It's a European style heel cut mag that does not drop free. It is worth pointing out, I have seen some grips made that has like a little bar that connects down here and puts a little lever up here for kind of a more traditional location of a magazine safety if you're wanting to go that route. The CZ does have a more, at least in the US, what we consider a traditional mag release location. However, I mean, I don't have the biggest hands, but that thing with the thumb rest is not easy to get to. You're not going to hit that without breaking your grip. And the mags do drop free. I feel like I have 1 or 2 mags. I've got a couple mags for the 82 and 83 that do not drop free. So the drop free mags might vary on the condition of your magazine. However, we do have an ambidextrous mag release. It's not one that you have to swap around. It's just you can always hit it from either side. And shooting the 82 or the 83, that's typically what I do. I'll take my middle finger from my shooting hand and just hit that mag release from the right side. So quite a bit different mag release there. The safety feature is also fairly different. The Makarov here, like I mentioned before, it does have a decocker, which is pretty nice. I know decockers have been around for a while, but that's definitely one advantage I would say that the Makarov has that the CZ82 does not have. It does not have a decocker. So the Makarov, you're going to be carrying it with the hammer down or the hammer decocked and the safety on. And of course you can carry it with the safety off using the double action trigger pull as your safety. And we'll do a trigger pull comparison here in just a second. The 82, like I said, does not have a decocker, so you're going to have to manually let that hammer down. However, once the hammer is down, you cannot engage the safety, so you're left solely upon the safety of that heavy double action trigger pull. With the hammer back, you can put the safety on, so you can carry it cocked and locked. And it's also worth pointing out that on the 82, the safety is ambidextrous once again. Going back to the polygonal rifling, I think it is worth pointing out, and I don't think I did, the 82 was the first mass-produced pistol to have that polygonal or polygonal rifling in it, so I think that is definitely something noteworthy. The 82, you can, if you have a CNR license, there's a special exemption on this guy that you are allowed to get this, even though it's not quite old enough for the traditional CNR qualifications. Now, I've seen some people say, and when I first got into guns, whenever that was brought up, people would always say it was specifically because of the barrel, being the first mass-produced polygonal rifling barrel. I have a book on CZs. I should have double-checked, but I'm pretty sure it says specifically because of the barrel. However, recently, in just the last few years, I've noticed a lot of videos that have been coming out on the 82 when they bring that up. They're not mentioning the barrel, but rather they're saying this is the first mass-produced military gun with ambidextrous controls, referring to the safety and the magazine release. And that's why it got a special exemption. And I think that's probably true, you know, come to think of it. I would imagine this is the first mass-produced military handgun to have those ambidextrous controls. So I don't know if it is because of the barrel, if it's because of the ambidextrous controls, if it's actually because of both. That would make sense to me. But it is worth pointing out that you can get these 82s with the CNR license in case you have one of those. Does not apply to the 380 and 32 ACP variant of this gun, known as the 83, because those do not have that polygonal rifling, and when that paperwork was filed, it was specifically for the 82 model. So even if the reason it came in under the CNR license, or you have the ability to get it, is because it has the ambidextrous controls and not the barrel. When that paperwork was filed, it was specifically for the 82 so it doesn't apply to the 83. And like I said, if you really want, you can get this gun in the 83 version, which is the exact same gun. Got one here with some nice wood grips on it. You can get those in 380 as well as 32 ACP, and they do also make some of the 83s in 9x18 Makarov. The Makarov, you can find these in 380. They did make some of them for the commercial market. I've also seen people change out the barrel because the Makarov round and the 380 round are close enough where you use the same magazine. So really all you got to do is change out the barrel. So I've seen a lot of these converted to 380, as well as some of them made in the 380 caliber specifically for the commercial market. And going back to the double stack mags, it is worth pointing out some of these did come into the country as well with double stack mags. Once again, I believe those were specifically made for the commercial market, not necessarily military surplus. They're not nearly as common as these single stack versions, but you can find a double stack Makarov. They do exist. Trigger pull, which I failed to measure right before making this video, so we'll go ahead and do that on camera. Also, I was watching one of my older videos. I can't remember if it's on the 82 or the Makarov, but watching me do the trigger pull test on camera, I was kind of yanking it. And I've had people say that when you want to get an accurate trigger pull test, you got to do it slow. And I have noticed when I do it slower, I do get a heavier weight. And I feel like I've gotten pretty lucky on a lot of my guns having light trigger pulls. So I did also want to redo that test and make sure I'm not yanking it. And I might as well do it on camera so you all know I'm not foobarring it. Again, we are safe. We will start with the Makarov in double action. We're using just the basic lineman trigger pull gauge. All right, the batteries aren't dead. That's good. We'll do an average of 5. Make sure we're all cleared out. So these both have pretty stout. Good Lord, let's try that again. I don't think my bar was out all the way. All right, do over. Safety's off? Yeah, safety's off. Like I was saying, these both do have pretty stout double actions. And that had an abbreviation for over. Like it was too heavy to even read. Yeah, wow. I think this is maxing out at 12 pounds. Yep. So, double action trigger pull is over 12 pounds. Clear that out. We will do the single action, which isn't nearly as bad as the double action. Just over 6 pounds. What was that, 3? Definitely seemed to lighten up after that first single action pull. And I think that's 5. So we get an average of 5 pounds, 13 ounces for the single action on the Makarov. The 82. Once again, we are empty. This one, I don't think the trigger pull, the double action trigger pull is as heavy as the Makarov. We'll see if it's over 12 pounds. Uh, 10 pounds. My finger kind of got in the way of that, so let's see if I can do that again, what we get. That was in single action because I forgot to decock it, so Sorry, guys. Let's start over. Oh, wait, no, I did have that decocked. I don't know what's going on there. That was way lighter. Ooh, that was close. Ooh, what am I doing? All right, that's 2. And 5. And I'll get an up close of the reset here in a little bit on both of them. Oh! That one had that little overmark again. Let's do it again. I mean, we're right under 12 pounds, so no surprise. Double action trigger pull on that guy is 11.7 ounces. However, we did get that one that was over 12 pounds. The single action. Ooh, that's nice. I think this is 4. And 5. Single action trigger pull. I think it was an average of 4 something pounds. You guys are gonna have to go back and. There we go. There it is. 4 pounds. Thought I lost it. Average was 4 pounds. 1.4 ounces. You can see that is the average. So that's pretty stinking nice. So let's put that out of the way. So back to the reset. All right, we are decocked once again. We are empty. So the double action pull on this guy we know is pretty stinking heavy. Was that the reset? I heard a little click. Yep, that was the reset. You barely feel that in your finger. I don't know if that click sound is even coming across in the mic. Not a very clear reset on that guy. The old 82. Yeah, you can tell that. Even though I think is what, roughly a pound lighter supposedly, since that one maxed out. This double action trigger, I'm going to do that again, feels way, way nicer than what the Makarov did. That you can feel in your finger quite a bit. Fairly long, but yeah, you can feel that quite clearly in your finger. And just out of curiosity, once again, we are empty here. I want to see what the reset is like on the 83. Yeah, it's the same. If you guys are curious, I do have a video out on the 83 as well as these KSD grips. So, if you're wanting to get a Makarov and you're trying to decide between the traditional Makarov, which is probably going to be a Bulgarian one, and the 82, is there one that's clearly better than the other? Other than the lack of decocker, the 82 has much more modern features, plus the higher capacity magazine, which is nice. The sights, even though they're both about the same accuracy-wise, I felt way quicker acquisitions with the 82. So I do appreciate that. The Makarov, once again, no fault of its own, it is the original design, so that's, you know, kind of neat to get the OG. A little bit lacking in firepower, but at the same time, I mean, yeah, people do carry these. You can use it for a home defense gun. Most people are going to be getting this and taking it to the range as a range toy, so the few less rounds, not, in my opinion, a huge deal. It is worth saying, yes, it is a disadvantage, but not a big one, I would say. You got the decocker, which is, that's nice, but other than that, any kind of more modern features it does not have. You have the very basic sights. You got the heel style mag release. The side grip panel that may or may not remind some of you of the side profile of a certain male organ. I'm sorry for pointing that out. I'm sure a lot of you never saw it until I just said that. And, well, if I saw it, you do too, and that's all you're going to see when you look at these things. However, that aside, this is much more of your iconic comm block gun. People typically don't think of the 82 when they think of a stereotypical comm block gun. They're both definitely comm block guns. This was more wide used. It's the OG as far as like Hollywood and movies go. If you ever see a bad guy that's a Russian, he's going to have either a Makarov or a Tokarev. Not really sure how many movies that the 82 pops up in. So icon level of the Makarov far, far outweighs the 82. However, the 82 is still a very good gun. It's neat because you get a few more rounds, you get some more modern features. It's the first mass-produced polygonal rifled barrel. That's neat to have in your collection. I'm sure a lot of you collect CZ. CZ is no slouch in the firearm department. So that'll fit in quite nicely in that category. Both of these do have 380 variants that you can get. I will say, at least as of filming this video in 2024, you're more likely going to come across the CZ83 in 380 than you are one of the Makarovs in 380. Like I said, they're out there, but the 83 seems to be pretty common, at least right now. So if you wanted kind of a quote-unquote comm block gun, but you want the easy accessibility to ammo, you can do that with both of these. It's just going to be a little bit easier with the finding an 83 that's chambered in 380 than finding a Makarov that's chambered in 380. So there's that as well. If I had to pick one or the other, like if I really can't pick one or the other. They're both really good. But let's say theoretically, I'm stranded on a desert island, and I can only take so many of my military surplus guns, and I can only take one of these. Now, if I can only take one gun in general, I'm on a desert island, I'm going to go ahead and take the 82 because of the slightly higher capacity. I don't know why I'm coming up with this scenario. But let's say I have other guns, right? I'm able to take my, my Berettas and my Glocks and my SIGs. But I can only take one of these two along with that collection. Or I was thinning out my collection. I had to, get rid of one. I can only pick one. I love them both. They're both very good guns. The trigger on the 82, like we just saw, is definitely better than what's on the Makarov. However, I would probably have to go with the Makarov in that case, simply because it's the more kind of iconic Makarov gun. It wouldn't be an easy decision. I love the 82. It's a great gun. But in that, scenario, I think I would go with the Makarov. So basically what I'm trying to get to, you can't go wrong with either one of these guns. They're both really good guns. If you're only able to get one, you only got room in your collection for one, and you are trying to collect that Cold War Soviet type collection, building that up, I would probably go for the Makarov over the 82, but not because the Makarov is better, simply because it's more, Soviet, communist, iconic compared to the 82. Really, other than that, I almost would go ahead and say that the 82 is better. I guess just the icon of the Makarov weighs out so much over the 82. that makes them comparable. And of course, in practical use, accuracy, they are the same. But CZ, better sights, better trigger pull, slightly better magazine capacity. So there you go. I wanted to get this comparison out there for you guys, in case any of you are trying to decide between one or the other, or just simply wanted to know what the differences were between one and the other. There you go. Oh, whoa. Two more things. We need to weigh these puppies, and I'll go over really quickly on what your holster, at least military surplus holster-wise, your options are. So we're going to weigh the guns empty with one mag in it. The Makarov comes in at 1 pound, 9.9 ounces. The CZ82 empty with one mag comes in at 1 pound, 11.9 ounces. And I was kind of curious, because these both feel, honestly, when you're holding it, pretty comparable in weight. I almost was wondering if the Makarov was going to end up being a little heavier than the 82, but no. I mean, it would make sense that the 82 is a little heavier because it's got a little more metal to it, but it doesn't feel that heavy. Surplus holster-wise, Makarov, you're pretty much going to see this guy out there, your very traditional closed flap holster. This one's got a little spot for your cleaning rod and a spot for one spare magazine. And you got this little cord that you pull, and it kind of pulls the gun out with it. I'm sure there are other variations of holsters for the Makarov when it comes to surplus-wise, but this is the most common one you're going to come across. The 82, you got a few more options. The most common one you will see is this kind of utility pouch looking deal. Once again, you got a spot for the gun. And then you can put a spare mag over here. This one's kind of neat because if God hates you and you're left-handed, you can use the holster as a left-handed holster too. The holster itself is also ambidextrous. You got a few other holsters that you will come across. You got this one, kind of the same concept. It's not ambidextrous. We're a canvas camo now. You got a spot for one mag. I had a guy point out on my 82 video that these were specifically made, I think, for the Czech. I think it was UN peacekeepers. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I appreciate the information. A lot of these came in with this style of holster. I think this is more of a police type holster, but you'll see a lot of these as well. And then you have your older, kind of more traditional style police holster. Of course, no spot for an extra mag. So, I have the holsters handy. I figured I'd go ahead and show you guys those. Out of all of these, I mean, I got only the one holster for the Makarov, but I'd say my favorite holster for the CZ is this one, the most common one. Simply because it's actually really utilitarian. You know, you can keep the gun in there with the mag. You got a spot for an extra mag, plus this little spot in the middle. You can put like a cleaning kit or a few extra rounds. And once it's all closed up, like, you know, you can carry that on your hip and it's not blaringly obvious that it's a gun. It just looks like a weird utility pouch. So, there you guys go. That concludes the video, finally. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found some information useful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. And of course, as always, stay safe and stay shiny.